What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Weems Motor Co. Let's get back on the jury. So the last time you guys were with us, we were doing the exhaust and the lights on the jury, and today is the day that we get to put some carburetors on this bike, and we get to go ahead and throw some oil lines and some fuel lines, get it all plumbed and ready to go. We are stoked because we are inches away from doing the first fire up on the jury. This motorcycle that we've only used parts in shop. We have not spent a dime. We've scrounged, we've repaired, we've fixed, we've rebuilt everything on this motorcycle to get it to this point where you see it right now, and we are stoked. Today we're gonna get some carbs on there and we're gonna get this thing ready to fire up. So first thing we gotta do, we gotta find some carburetors. Let's go do it. So in every episode, you guys see this motorcycle sitting in the background. Now this is a 1966 Triumph Bonneville that we've affectionately called Dad's bike. This was my dad's motorcycle. I did the restoration on this a few years back. It's a running, riding, amazing motorcycle. However, I never ride it because I just like to have Dad sitting with me in the shop as I'm building all of these cool projects. Well, on this particular 1966 Bonneville, it actually has the incorrect carburetors. Now, these are what we call amyl concentric carburetors, and the last year for amyl concentric carburetor, the first year for amyl concentric carburetors was 1968. So these are actually not the correct carbs for this motorcycle. However, throughout my journeys across this fine country of America, was able to source the correct date-coded amyl monoblock carburetors that should be on Dad's bike. Stoked about that because these carbs that are on here were pretty much brand new. I probably have less than 500 miles on these, so these are going to come off, get cleaned up, go ahead and get them spruced up, throw some new gaskets in there, make sure everything's nice and clean so that we can put them on the jury, and we'll have carbs for that. And we got the correct carbs for Dad's bike. So super cool. So we need to grab out some wrenches, start pulling these carburetors off so that we can get them taken apart, get them cleaned up to go onto the jury. So let's grab some tools. Now, we know it breaks your heart as much as it does ours to pull anything off of that motorcycle, but I only did it because they weren't correct and I have the correct ones. Now, I need your help by keeping me accountable to make sure that I get those monoblocks rebuilt and put on there. Another way to help is go to our website, buy a shirt, buy a hat, buy some stickers. That will help us get the money for the rebuild kits for those old monoblocks. So support us, go over to weemsmotorco.com. And if you want to support even more and know some behind the scenes footage of all the cool things going on in the shop, along with getting to see every video before anyone else does, join us at Patreon. You can sign up. Everything down from $5 a month up to $20 a month. You receive discounts on the website, 20% off of every purchase. You get special releases, get all that cool stuff. Anyways, now we're gonna get back to these amyl concentric carburetors, and we're gonna strip these things all the way down so that we can get them cleaned up and get them onto the jury. So let's get to work. Now now that we got these all stripped down, we are going to use a chemical carburetor cleaner dip system. You don't want to keep it in here too long. Matter of fact, anything over 4 hours could damage some of those sensitive aluminum parts, so we don't want to do it in too long. But we did have a little bit of buildup in one of those float bowls, so we want to make sure that we get it super cleaned up. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw it into the dip, let it sit for about 45 minutes, then we'll pull it all out, rinse it with water, and then we will take our brake clean spray and all those sensitive little gasoline alleys that go through that carburetor. We're going to make sure that every one of those is absolutely positively clean. Then we could reassemble with a whole new gasket set, because I do keep gasket sets on hand in the shop because, you know, I got a lot of these bikes sitting around. They don't get ridden as much as they should, so every once in a while they need some carb rebuild. So let's get the carb parts in the dip, let it sit for about 45 minutes. While that's happening, we'll jump back over onto the bike and start doing the oil lines. So let's get it going. So here we are at the motorcycle, and we're gonna run some oil lines and some fuel lines and make sure that everything's ready to go when we do go to kickstart this thing, that the oil system is intact and good. First thing you want to do, obviously, is check to make sure that you don't have any trash or gunk inside of your oil tank and your fuel tank. So looking at the inside of this oil tank, probably should have looked at it a little bit before we mounted it on here. We did discover that it does need to get flushed out, so we're gonna have to pull this off, get some gas in there, shake it up, get it all cleaned out so that we can get it mounted back on the bike and run our oil lines. Speaking of oil lines, we have 2 oil lines that come out of the bottom of the oil tank, but also there is a small oil line that comes off the side that actually feeds up to the top with the rocker boxes, where this super cool Webco style oil cooler is mounted on the rocker boxes. But these 2 lines down at the bottom, they simply go straight across down into the backside of the engine where that oil pump is that we've seen earlier in these video series. That's where it sucks the oil in from the oil tank and pushes it back into the oil tank. So really short little oil lines we got to run on that, but the main thing is that we get this oil tank off, get it flushed so that we can get ready for these oil lines. So let's get this thing taken off. And that is why you want to make sure you flush stuff out. There's all kinds of gunk and stuff inside that tank. It's all cleaned out now so we can get it back onto the bike, get it going, and get these oil lines on. Let's get back to work. Alright, so we went ahead and grabbed up our oil line and that little line that goes up to the rocker box feed, and one thing we don't want to do is use old hoses, so we just went into our box and grabbed out what we have on hand. And it just so happens I keep what we need on hand. So 5/16 inside diameter for the larger tubes, and for that one tube that goes up to the rocker box, that's a 1/4 inch inside diameter. I love using these style clamps where you have a set of pinchers that close them in. They seal up wonderfully. They don't work so well when you're on the side of the road and have to get something off. You have to cut them off, but this bike, I don't foresee us breaking down too often with it. So we're gonna go ahead and get these oil lines ran, get them clamped up, get them nice and tight, and then we can figure out how we're gonna do our fuel lines. Let's get these oil lines done. Man, talk about perfect timing. Our 45 minutes are up, so we can go ahead and pull these carburetor parts out of our dip, get them nice and cleaned up with some water, and then we can go through and clean all those little galleys and everything inside of them. So perfect timing. Let's pull these out. Got them all cleaned up, ready to put back together. Got all of our gaskets laid out. Everything is ready to go to get these amels back together. But before we do that, I just wanted to take a quick second and kind of let you guys know a little bit of difference between the dual carburetor models and the single carburetor models. Now, the dual carb models, which is like what we're doing with the Jury, is called a Bonneville, just like what Dad's bike is back there. Now, the performance difference, you think carburetors, two carburetors is going to give you a little bit more performance, and you are correct. There is 5 horsepower gained when using dual carburetors. Now, here's the thing. 37 parts in each carburetor. That means 74 parts total that have to be absolutely set exactly the same and synchronized once they go on the bike. So that 5 horsepower that you can gain by having 2 of these carburetors can quickly be lost by not having these carburetors set exactly the same. So when it comes to putting these together, you need to pay very close attention to make sure that everything is clean, everything is set exactly the same, and they are installed. And then we will talk about a balancing, you know, with the air-fuel ratios and things like that, because it can be affected by how well the valves are seating, how well the piston rings are, which we know in this bike, the piston rings are a little worn out. So all of those things go into play on how that engine operates. Enough of the nerdiness with it, but it's time to go ahead and get these carburetors put together. So let's get to work. Two Amel 930 concentric carburetors assembled perfectly. Went ahead and pulled the gas tank off of the Jury so that we can have a little bit more access to get these carbs mounted up on these intakes. I went ahead and dug out a cable, had a brand new one stuck in a bin, so it works out perfectly. We can go ahead and get everything set up, get these carburetors mounted onto this bike, and we can get this video wrapped up. So let's get these on here. And we have 2 carburetors on there, super stoked about it. Now, last thing to do is throw some fuel line on it, and just happen to have this translucent red fuel line. I mean, I guess it kind of matches the bike, but it's all we got. So that's all we're using, just like everything else on this bike has been free. Only stuff inside the shop. Haven't spent a dime on it. So we're gonna throw this fuel line on there. We can get the gas tank back on and we can wrap this video up. Let's do it quick. And just like that, we are all plumbed, carbureted up, ready to throw some fuel and some oil into this motorcycle and get it fired up. And that's what's gonna happen on the next video. Man, super fun time doing this. Always love working on these old Triumphs. But with that, we're wrapping up today's video. So if you are new around here, jump down and hit that subscribe button. If you really like the video, hit that thumbs up, turn those notifications on, and let everyone know what's going on right here at Weems Motor Co. Peace.